some qualitative data
collected from the meetings I had with you. You've been waiting for this, and so now I have your data. So this is time for you to hear what all of the Board of Trustees have articulated individually to me around what's on your heart, as we begin to think about a consensus on what we're going to work on. And so we're going to engage in a process to reach consensus once I give you the data. Try to connect the morning's learning with what I'm doing now, and to just make sure all of your goals are in line with mine, which I've submitted. So we'll do all of these simultaneously, so I always begin everything I present with a purpose. So my next slide says, I should be moving that. I love my title here. This is not going, of course. You spoke, I listened, this is what I learned. So you spoke, I heard you, this is what I heard. So these are the qualitative results from the meetings with you. Before I get into it, we heard Dr. Cole talk about it as well. I say this all the time to the administrators. In the absence of data, the point to ponder as we go through this, because the process about goal development does not start without some data, some evidence on what you need to work on. You just don't jump into that. You have to have evidence to indicate to you what our focus should be. So this work I'm doing is going to help you with that, as well as all the other voice sessions I'm holding around the community. So in the absence of it, we can't make decisions. I don't buy a refrigerator without talking to people around what's the best model. Every decision we make is based on data, and certainly instructional decisions in the school system are based on that. So this is the point we talk always in our administrative meetings. In the absence of this, how do you know what you're doing? And if you don't have this and you're just shooting in the dark, then that becomes a problem. So there are two types of data that I'm going to go over with you today. The data I collected from you is qualitative. You know, it's because it's around opinions, it's thoughts. You answer questions that I will go through. But it's information based on the adults in the system, the conditions in the system that we have that support achievement, which is the end result, affect data. So when we, as educators, talk all the time, it's the student achievement we want to get to, but we also, which is affect, end of the road, but we don't get there without looking at how we as adults are doing the work. So the qualitative and effect data, they're very important pieces, and I always talk about that with the administrators. So now let's get into, oh, I'm not moving the thing. I have to remember to do that. Okay, so one of the questions I asked each of you, what are your general impressions of Greenberg Central School District? Just kind of look, and so this is raw qualitative data. I did not annotate or change anything. I took copious notes and I went back and I just read it over and over. And this is the consensus of things I heard from the group here. That you're concerned about, that you know that teachers here really care about the students. That came through clearly. But there's a negative perception of the high school, that it's not safe. And fights in schools and so forth. There needs to be clarity on funding. There's a little typo there. Community does not have trust in our buildings. I was told that. Not inconsistency in public perception. Community pays a lot of taxes. District staff not held accountable. Overall, those were your general impressions. Then I said to you, so but okay, what do you think are the strengths of the district? Here is the list of things that came out from this body here. We know we have an IB, AP, ALP program, Spanish, world language, and I truncated a little this just kind of so I can abbreviate it. Teachers care about the students again. District audits are clean. Yes. Financial staff is cross-trained. A one-on-one device, we know that. District is practically no debt. Big, big win. Community partnerships and parental involvement and engagement, very high. Then I went to the next question and said to you, what are the weaknesses? And this is what I heard. And you can see some things that are strengths also could be improved. So they kind of work in both areas. The IB program is great, we know that. But the program is IB-like, which inferred it's for a certain group of students, IB-like. It's not inclusive. IB and AP programs lack rigor.
Consistency in the programs drop off. We have seen that in our data. Program geared for students with exceptional background. There again is what I meant in the first bullet. So many systems in the district are not being followed through. There's an example. Leadership team did not get professional learning. Leaders need instructional leadership. Trust is a concern, showing favorites. Diversity a concern at some schools in the district. Students not prepared for writing or organizational skills to manage work. Then I went on and said, okay, so now what do you most want to preserve? Clearly, all 7 of you, every one of you mentioned this. You want to preserve the mansion and school buildings. We know we have an issue there. We want the IEB program. Our community wants it. We want to hold on to our kids. We do have a lot of our students in private schools. We want to attract those kids back. And the way you do that is to increase our perception of the district, our performance as a district, so that those parents, those younger ones especially who are moving into our community, will see us as a world-class district and want their students to go here. And we want to preserve our diversity. So these are very good points. Then I said to you, what are some key issues you think we should face? That this gets into now we're starting to identify where we need to go. So I listed 3 pages of this. I won't go through all of them. Facilities came out, and these are not in any order. Facilities, ventilation, bond. There's IB again. So that clearly says that's an issue here. There's a concern for that. Bullying in schools, holding the bar high for all students. That kind of connects back to IB. Social emotional learning, we know that. Foreign language at an early age. Go to the next one. There's a gap for brown and black students in the sciences. Safety and security came out strong. Monitors in the schools and lack of safety protocols. The relationship between the PTAs and the various buildings is not the greatest due to the lack of clear and consistent standards. Character education, again, issues you are asking, all of you are saying we would like to face. Community made aware of something before the administration and the board. Mindfulness activities that can be practiced on a daily basis on the elementary level. Math in the middle school, AIS, pulling students out for intervention. We need to, next page, please. Increased communication, so that's come up this morning with neighborhood associations, partnerships, and local businesses. Human Resource Director came from one of you in terms of something to face, so I listed it here. Limiting the student transitions from school to school, that came up in this group. There's a concern that our students are, before they transition to a school, they're transitioning back to another school. So what is that doing to student achievement? Need an enrichment program, departmentalization, inquiry-based learning, moving ECP, all of these are issues that you said, we gotta face all of this. Go to the next one, please. And then other concerns that really weren't weaknesses or strengths, I just said to you, anything else on your heart? And these are things here that you mentioned. So this is qualitative. Here are your results. This is what you have said is important to you. All right? These other concerns here, you can read. Now, what I want to do with you is if you go to the next, we're going to go through how we now quantify qualitative data so you can start identifying out of all of this where you're going to prioritize. Because we cannot do all of this. There are a lot of the issues overlap. A lot of them build upon one another. So what are the high yield pieces, high yield things as a board you want to tackle based on what all of you have said to me? Now the direction is, where do you want to put your time? What do you want me to focus on? So if you go to this slide here, Stephen Covey, Dr. Cole's quoted him. He's well known in the research world and leadership development and administration, and I talk to the principals a lot about him. When you think about your goals now, you think about the end. Begin with the end in mind, that vision. Where do you want us to be in 3 to 5 years? So when you go through this process, the goals, it's not a yearly goal. It is over time. Where do you see us being? So you begin with the end and you develop a goal based on that. And Stephen Covey has done a lot of work on this. So I went on and put a slide in here about board and superintendent goals, okay? So they're based on vision and mission. In my vision, in my goals I submitted to you, I connected it to the vision and the mission. Board goals are statements that help direct me in developing measurable goals to deploy district-wide. Your goals that you develop should help focus the community on what is important. As we prioritize these areas, your goals should be, these are the guidelines. Generally, you should set 3 to 5 goals. More than that, it's not even, you can't even accomplish. So less is more, but think of your high-yield goals that if you achieve them and we do well, we fix many things. So high yield in that way. The goals for the superintendent, my goals may need to be tweaked. You requested my goals in September. So now as you're doing your goals, we need to make sure my goals align with yours. So if we need to tweak it, we do that. That's okay. My goals are measurable and generally either 1 year or stretch goals. A lot of my goals right now are 1 year because I'm waiting on this process. I'm waiting on a strategic plan that will spread over 5 years. But I wanted you to know where I'm focusing my work right away. And what goals does the board superintendent have for the district? So these are the guidelines you keep in mind as you go through this process of developing your goals. So again, the mission statement is there and the vision statement. I do vision, mission, but interchangeably vision where we want to be, mission how we're going to get there. Think of it, those two, just like that. Again, Dr. Coles did, I put it in the PowerPoint. This is what is on our website. This process you're going through now, we need to make sure it is aligned. Your goals are aligned with these. These may need to change. So that's our vision, and that is the mission. Okay, hold on. And our core beliefs, of course, follow. This is how we behave. We believe. This is what governs our behavior around our mission and our belief statements. So now, you stay in your groups, as you are right now. That's the slide here. Give you some time to talk about this as we start developing, or first identifying what are focus areas. So I gave you a lot of your feedback. So now, if you look at this slide here, it's time to decide. So from that list of issues, those 3 slides, what do you want? What do you care about? What is important? And what is the outcome? When you think about these goals, think of them always in terms of the outcome for kids. And what does a world-class system look like? So you're going to, you reflect on this. I'll give you 2 minutes. You don't necessarily have to answer this, but from what I've shared so far, before I quantify and show you what areas what do you think, what do you want? What does this board care about? Do it together, and then we'll see where you are. What is important to you? When you think about what you want, it goes to what you really value. What do you value for this district? We'll give you a few minutes, and then we're going to get into the exercise. One more minute.
SEO kind of falls under the IB though, no? I think the SEO falls under the IB. So, because IB's throughout the buildings, right? It's at all levels. Physical safety as well, right? Yeah. Back to your question about that.
20 seconds.
I would say something along the lines of the whole child.
Okay, if we could come back together. So, Trustee Warner, what about your group?
Okay. So, what did we want? We said lifelong learners because the future is constantly changing. They should be technologically competent because the world is becoming increasingly technological. And they should be comfortable in a culturally diverse environment. And that's basic mission, vision statement stuff. And then we said, well, what's changed recently that might make us emphasize something in particular? And I brought up the idea that the Capitol riots were a bad idea, and that a lot of idealistic people who thought they were doing the right thing did something bad because it was based on the wrong information. And if you had the information that you might want is out there, but you have to have critical thinking skills and the willingness to look at points of view other than your own. And there's a whole educational process that would make you more savvy for dealing with a complex information system. And that's actually found in the IB program, interestingly, that we already have, although the concepts might be at the DP level pushed towards a smaller group of IB students than we want. We want to teach everybody these skills so that they can understand what's really happening in the world at a higher level, and so we want to spread that out over a larger population, and that's how far we got.
That's a strong, great value. Trustee Valen, what is your table value?
Well, we kind of did broad outlines, broad buckets, and we first mentioned safety, which includes facilities and physical safety. It also brings in discipline, physical safety, self-control, mindfulness, whole child education. Some of these buckets overlap. The second one was every child needs to be challenged at their level. So that's rigor at all levels. It's high expectations at all levels. It's every child making progress, whether we're talking the top 10% or right there.
Yes.
Covers everybody. And I think I've already said this, but again, whole child education, we're talking about social, emotional, character development, and we saw the IB program is providing the framework to build that forward.
Great, thank you. Sharing this table.
we talked about student-centered learning and making sure that students have a growth mindset, you know, like that we start to focus on their actual needs instead of just perceived needs. A real focus on making sure that students are walking out of school with an understanding of how to learn, not just what we think that they should learn. You know, taking a much bigger approach and understanding the things that they're interested in, meeting them where they're at, and teaching them through you know, some of the channels that they currently spend time with and that they tend towards. Creating great expectations for making sure that everybody becomes lifelong learners. Also talked about technologically competent and culturally diverse. Making sure our facilities are safe, students have self-control, and that they're challenged at their level.
Thank you. So what we just did, normally if we had more time, we would have charted on these chart papers around the room. I'd have been scribing or someone, and as you were reporting out, I would have just been writing it down, and as I heard things repeat, I'd have just went back and started tallying. That's the process, you know, so know that we're rushed, but that's what you just did, what we would do if we had time to do that. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure David jotted it down.
So now I have the next slide up here. Oh, I've never been good at this. I always bring the board back to this. It's in my entry plan and it's in my goals because I know the components of a school system consist of these 6 buckets. So just want to bring you back to all the issues that were listed on those 3 slides fell, if you think about it, in one of these 6 buckets. So what I did for you, since we didn't have enough time to do all this charting and brainstorming together, I did it for you. So if you would go, I'm going to skip this slide here and go to this slide here. What I did for each key issue on those 3 slides, I went back and put a corresponding number next to it. What I'm trying to do is quantify your qualitative statements. So bear in mind, student achievement, organizational capacity, I gave student achievement a number 1. Organizational capacity is 2, community and public relations is 3, operations is 4, parental involvement is 5, climate and culture. So when we go back to look at the issues, I did that grouping for you. So where it is, facilities falls in 2. So I'm giving it a number now so we can actually count and get the majority. Wow. So here you are, look at the slide, you have it. That's what you're looking at, how I quantify your issues that you identified we wanted to face, so you can prioritize. Here's the next one, 3 slides worth. Do you see what I've done?
That's helpful.
Okay. And here it is again. So you can just, these, then the next step after that, go to the next slide. I went back and I counted. So out of the 3 slides of things that you indicated you wanted to face, 14 fell under student achievement. 10 fell under organizational capacity, and so forth. That's how you read it. Clearly, if you look at this data, the question now says, are the prioritized areas you identify in your small groups and all, are these the ones that you're thinking about? What came out, if you just look at numbers, number 1 is what? Student achievement, so we're right on it. We are saying as a board and as a superintendent, we know what we must do first must connect to students. So that was very, very, very good to see. I wasn't surprised, I knew that. 10, number 11, operations and finance, that's where facilities falls. Big, big area. So when we start doing goals, we now need to flesh out what that looks like. And then 10 was organizational alignment. So right now, if you look at this, you basically have identified 3 areas you definitely want to focus on. So let's go to this one.
What exactly?
Okay, yeah, questions.
Yes, I'm sorry. Organizational capacity and alignment, what exactly is the meaning of that?
So that is, do we have the right systems and structures and and processes in place? Do we have the right people here in place? Do we need more staff? Do we have too much staff? Are we meeting the needs of the system to support schools and student achievement? Looking at the system as a whole, is it well running? Is it well functioning to support student achievement?
Thank you.
So now, we have really 3 areas. Let's check. How do you agree? Would you agree with this data that if you were to move forward with doing your goals, you definitely, because your last 5-year plan, you had focus areas. Would you conclude that these are the 3, and then maybe if we do 5, next will be community relations, and then parental involvement? Or what came out a lot in the meetings with you was climate and culture. What are we doing around character education, SEL, all of those things that build that whole child that Trustee Valen talked about? Are we doing enough with that? Yes, Trustee Mayers.
Well, I was going to say, I would wonder whether or not that falls into student achievement, really.
Say that again.
Whether or not that falls into student achievement, because what Jamal and I were talking about was looking at a growth mindset and helping students learn to think, which is part of their achievement, but also within the change of the climate and culture. It's really shifting the thought process from information to you figure out how to get information yourself and evaluate and critique that information.
That's right. I agree with you. Any other thoughts? Yes.
So it seems to me, I mean, the reason I asked you about the organizational capacity and alignment and the way that you described it, that's really very, it's highly integrated with student achievement. It's almost that is part of that student achievement goal. But then what I just heard from the 3 groups is that, so it sounded like it was student achievement, operations, and finance, and that the third piece was this kind of, maybe what you put down here as climate and culture when it comes to what Chris called discipline or behavior or just civic engagement, or so. Anyway, that was, it seems like we actually had another topic come up in the 3 groups, which was that one.
And you will see that overlap in many of the areas.
Right.
They kind of overlap with each other. It's just not clear science like that, but as much as for the purpose of trying to group, you try to identify where things fall. But you're absolutely right. Student achievement won't happen, definitely impacts student organizational capacity. Having the best teachers and principals and staff in our district certainly supports that. Having schedules that supports learning, where there's more time for kids to have instruction. All of that, that's an organizational system that definitely connects to student achievement. So we could have a goal in student achievement. We're going to revise Bell schedules. So they do overlap. So it's okay, though, if they do. So now we have, I just want to show you a couple of examples. So when we start developing the goals, when we settle on the focus areas, we start the goal with the focus area, broad. Then we start delving, breaking it down. So what can happen here, some of the things you listed for student achievement that are numbered number 1 can become a strategy to accomplish the goal you have for student achievement. You see? It could be something specific you're going to do. So, because when you do this piece here, you're going to now get down to being very specific about what in student achievement we're going to work on. Again, knowing we can't work on everything. So you have a focus area, you write a goal statement. That end result, what is the end result for that focus area? We want our students to read by 3rd grade. I think I've heard that. Then, what are the strategic objectives? How are we going to do that? What are the activities? Who's going to do it? Who's going to be accountable? What are going to be the timelines and the dates for measurement? You see why this process takes time? So you take each area, you identify the goal for that area and you flesh it out. This really is the work that leads into the strategic plan, because now that you kind of indicated some of your focus areas, when we do that strategic plan work, we kind of know now where we need to begin, and we still need to go back and see if our community aligns with this. So committees then are formed on all the focus areas, right? You did that before. Once you have your areas, they are formed because they must have input into this. We say to them, and you can as a board of trustees, this is what's dear to us. Bear in mind, this could change if we don't get input that aligns from the community. So that input is when we have these groups, committees, more data is collected around what's dear to them, and we'll see if they sort of align with you. And that process is a schedule of meetings where you sit and you flesh out this stuff here. So I wanted to show you a couple. I didn't flesh them out all, I just did, and that process here is what I'm talking about. So the process in this next phase then is to get community involved. Could be through surveys, meetings, to begin to talk about how these areas look. So I went back, and these are just random goals that I just, from my other times I've presented, I just found, just give you some examples how it can begin to look. So if the focus area, for example, on this slide is student achievement, Greenberg Central School District will develop a program to ensure the district hires and retains high-quality, effective personnel in all aspects of our educational programs. There is the connection with student achievement and organizational capacity.
Okay.
Then, specific objectives. What are we going to do? Very meaty here. We're going to implement what's there. We're going to provide, you flesh that out. So that's the beginning of how we need time to do that. Look at the next example. I gave you a second one in student achievement, how it can look. And you notice the strategy is it could be one of the focus areas that we also identified early on. Here is another one. Student achievement again, because that was our top area, so I picked out a couple. Greenberg Central School District will develop an outstanding educational program that ensures that every student achieves the highest academic performance. That took into consideration everything Trustee Vallon said. We want that for every kid. So that's your focus area, big area we're going to focus on, but we have to get specific. We're going to embrace and consistently implement in every building. You see how it's in the district, multi-tiered intervention to monitor and improve student achievement. We're going to develop, you see there the verb there, and implement curricula as well as intervention groups to ensure so you start fleshing it out like that. Here's another one. I gave you one in operations and finance, how it could look. Greenberg Central School District will strive for a state-of-the-art facilities program, because facilities came out big, that meets the needs of our students and staff on a long-term basis. We have prioritized our facility needs and have a plan in place for resources necessary to achieve our facilities program. Then, here are some specific things we can do. And this speaks to, I think, what the Facilities Committee, Trustee Warner, has done in terms of having a comprehensive plan of all the projects that we need to work on. So we're going to develop a comprehensive plan. Go right ahead.
So let me ask you, at some point I want to get to a level of granularity at which I say I It's exactly what program and all of that kind of thing. Does it go there, or
Yes.
is there another level down below that somewhere?
So what will happen, because I didn't flesh all of these out, then
Yes.
you have these three pieces. Go back here. Then we flesh out the activities.
Okay.
when we're going to measure it, and who's going to do it. Those are the pieces that also must come with all of these. So that's exactly right. This is not enough, absolutely not. But we've begun to narrow it down a little bit, just giving you some examples of how you start thinking about that based on what you value. They get on grade level if they're not already there. Every child needs that kind of progression. Everyone is not right on grade level. Many are, but those who are not need that monitoring all the time. That's what we work on with teachers. So you're right. That's the work when we need to continue doing. So I just wanted to show you examples to give you ideas. These are made up now. I made all of these up. So let's go. I think I did one in community and parent involvement to give you an idea. Any thoughts about that? Because that came up. And me see how accurate we are in our perception. So this is just your data. And the data of the board's goals are based on what's good for the district and everyone who lives in it. But you do need to you're taking the leadership by starting. So I wanted you to know how seriously I took those meetings with you. And I thought the best way to share this with you was to share with you your data and quantify it in some kind of way to help us begin prioritizing focus areas. So when we're asked, what are you focusing on? We've done some work around this. We've looked at the data. Looks like the consensus here is that we know we're going to do some things on facilities. We're going to flesh out what that looks like. We definitely are going to touch student achievement. And as much as possible, we want to develop those strategies so that they overlap, so we get more done, because we have a lot to, we just can't get to everything. So you have to think high yield. Yes.
Oh yeah, you see me with my question. Thank you. Is there a place, or where is the place for the feedback from the staff? Do you give that to us, what you've obtained from your central office team, your administrative team, and underneath, but the staff, the people who work day to day with the students, and what their views are as well to fit into this?
And that's a good point. That's why this is kind of early, because I haven't gotten back to you what the other community people have said. They also weighed in on these very same questions. This is just your data. I don't want to emphasize that. But I've been with teachers. I've been with every school and all the parents. I have community meetings set up. And in my meetings with them, they get the very same questions. It may not align with yours. So, yes, when I'm done with that, I will be coming with that full data and sharing, but this is a good beginning. This is not a waste of time. It at least gives you your data to start thinking around as a board, you know, what we need to do, what we want to do. And we just use the other data as a checkpoint to see how accurate your perceptions are with everyone else's. And I think they are. I'm telling you, every group I've met with, facilities has come up. And it was I thought facilities was going to be #1 here, really, over student achievement, because I can't tell you how much I heard about that, and in a very respectful way. But student achievement, I was so glad to see how everyone sees all what we do connects to that. So that's #1. We're going to work on that. And I'm so excited about the work we're going to do there. Who had a hand up? Ms. Trustee Dragic?
Yeah, so my question is, you mentioned that the process starts with setting these goals, but then we go to the community. So what happens if we find out that they're really not interested in one of our goals? Or, I mean, should we have like 6 goals and then bring it down to 3 and then work on those? I mean, what is the actual kind of iterative process here? Because this is the first time I'm doing this. So. Yeah,
so that's a good point, and that could happen. I mean, the board serves the community. So if you get evidence that the community has a heart around something, I think we can always embed that. You always can find somewhere to embed it as a strategic objective, or even making it a focus area. But trust me, whatever that comes up in, it's going to be one of those 5 areas. So if we are focusing on that area, we can address it.
Okay.
We assure them that, but they at least have voice and input, and they have time to talk. Again, this process takes days, and they are in groups, and they're talking, and they're arguing, and discoursing, and just debating, rather, because we need a plan that embellishes everyone's feelings around this. This is what our community is waiting for. But your leadership is tremendous in how you've started. So I wanted to use this time to show you where we are. Now, we need to talk about the next phase of the strategic plan. And that's something we know we've been talking about the past couple of board meetings. Who's going to do this fleshing out? That has to happen. That is the work, you know, that we need some support perhaps to do, because that's the next phase. That's why the timeliness of what we're presenting and I'm recommending is where it is now. It connects to this. Any reflections, Trustee Pineda?
I'll tell you that from my perspective, you hit the nail on the head. I think you were very accurate in capturing the information we provided to you. I think it's just a matter now. I know the process takes time, and I'm sure our community is a little impatient at this point, because, you know, the more time we take, the less progress we make in terms of timeline. But I'd rather take the time and the care to go through the process the right way and have an achievable outcome than just kind of rushing this and not getting it done. So I appreciate that.
We have 4 minutes left. Any other reflections?
I'd actually love to hear
reflections or comments. We have 4 minutes, and we have a hard stop at 1, so we want to just kind of let that happen now.
I'd love to hear from every trustee. I see Trustee Warner's hand up, but if after this, can we hear from the other trustees as well?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that the next thing that's going to happen is you have another report to give us with the rest of the data that you've gathered.
Yes.
I'm hearing that instead of having one big committee the way we did it 5 years ago, it sounds like what we're going to have is we're going to break down into subcommittees.
Yes.
Each of which will tackle a specific focus area and set some goals within that. And then we'll come back all together at some point and share our goals with each other and see if they're all mutually compatible. And then we'll have our completed list, and then the board will vote to adopt them. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so it is. That's the process.
And how long do you think this process will take?
Remember, we talked, so we're starting now. About December, we will begin, and because I'll be back in front of you in November with my data. So plan on seeing that. And they'll see if it mirrors yours. And then December is when we kick into strategic plan. And remember, we're hoping to have it done by June.
Very good.
So from December to June is all that processing, all that meeting, all of, and we have to structure how that happens and when and who. So some details that will, that's why, my recommendation was around, getting some support to do that.
Thank you. One more question.
Sure.
There are two ways of looking at these groups. One way is to form a separate group to discuss the goals. The other way is to leverage the existing committee system. Have you considered that as an option?
All of those are options, yes. Yes.
All right, we will discuss this further.
We'll discuss that, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd love to hear from trustees Valen, Thomas. I don't know if Dragic, you want to add anything?
I just want to say I actually like the idea of using the committee structure because it's already in place. So that just makes it organizationally easier than now setting up additional committees and additional meetings. I think we could really use that. I think that's a terrific idea.
That's a good, we have an education, we have a facilities, we have a ESCS committee. So they are in place. We give them, and they want that, I am sure, that involvement to work on this piece. But we have to structure when that's going to happen. It could be the work we do, Trustee Dragic, at your education. We got to start tackling that. Once you get the data, that's the work we start doing. Trustee Valen, you want to say something?
No, I have nothing more to add. David said what I was going to say. So.
Okay. It is 1 o'clock. Trustee, I'll turn it over to you, Trustee.
I do want to hear from
Mayers.
Trustee Thomas, if we could just take 30 more seconds.
No, I mean, I thought that this was all great. I am definitely looking forward to going through the strategic plan. A couple of things I wrote down, and this is, considering if COVID is better as we're going through this, like in the spring and things, maybe having some type of hackathon, workshop, conference, something where we do put these all up, and we do invite the community, and we do have a little bit of food. I always want a little bit of food. And we go through this process in a way where small groups come together and then bring a lot of what you just did here, but with the broader community, so that it's not one thing this month and another thing this month to kind of expedite the entire process. So
yes, thank you. I agree. This is good. This is the work. This is great work. This is the work that's the foundation of the district. So it stands to reason. Let's put some time in it. We're going to have to live with this document 5 years. So do you want to own it? You want to own it. So it's not a rush job. We need to do this process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Iverson. Thank you, trustees. And hopefully the community will watch and get excited about engagement with the school district and helping us to formulate our next 5-year strategic plan. Thank you.